A $120 order can suddenly feel like only $30 today. But buy now, pay later is not magic. The cost has not disappeared. The real question is not only who pays, it is who pays when. Buy now, pay later is a short-term installment product built into checkout. Instead of one full payment, the purchase is split into scheduled payments over time. In a pay-in-4 model, the shopper may pay the first installment immediately. The remaining payments come due later, often every 2 weeks, depending on the provider and country. The merchant does not necessarily wait until the shopper finishes every payment. If the order is approved, the merchant can often ship the product right away. The simple checkout button hides a small network of relationships. There is the shopper, who wants the product now and agrees to repay later. There is the merchant, who wants fewer abandoned carts and more completed orders. There is the BNPL provider, which approves the plan and collects the future payments. And there is usually a card or bank account used to collect repayments. At checkout, the smaller first payment can reduce the pain of the full price. That is why merchants offer it. More shoppers may complete the purchase. A shopper who hesitates at $120 may accept $30 today. The merchant may pay a fee for offering that smoother checkout experience. The shopper sees the full price, but the merchant may receive a net amount. For the merchant, the trade-off is simple. Pay a fee if it helps create more sales. Before approving the plan, the provider may check risk signals about the order. The provider is not only moving payments, it is deciding whether repayment looks likely. That decision can feel nearly instant because the checkout experience is optimized for speed. If the risk looks too high, the plan may be declined or limited. After checkout, the important part moves from the cart into the calendar. Many plans use automatic repayment, so the later payments can feel almost invisible. The problem starts when several small plans overlap at the same time. Each installment can look manageable alone, while the combined schedule becomes harder to track. If the repayment source has a problem later, the checkout choice becomes a payment problem. Some products charge late fees or use other consequences when a payment fails. Some plans are marketed as interest-free, but not every installment product works the same way. The useful questions are the due dates, fees, repayment source, and what happens if you miss. That is why regulators care about disclosure, affordability, complaints, and consumer protection. For shoppers, BNPL can help spread a real expense across predictable payments. For merchants, it can reduce checkout hesitation and make expensive carts easier to accept. For the provider, revenue can come from merchant fees, consumer fees, financing terms, or related services. The hidden system is a transfer of timing, risk, and friction. The shopper feels less friction at checkout because the full cost is pushed into a schedule. The merchant accepts a cost because fewer people may abandon the cart. The provider earns by approving, paying, collecting, and managing repayment risk. That is why BNPL is not just another button beside a credit card. Returns and refunds can become confusing because the shopper, merchant, and provider are all involved. A return may not instantly erase every pending repayment or account entry. If something goes wrong, the problem may involve support, repayments, refunds, or payment disputes. BNPL grew because it fits online shopping, fast checkout, visible installments, and low initial friction. Before using it, ask whether you would still buy the item at the full price today. Then ask what other installment payments are already waiting on the calendar. The first mental shift is simple. Pay in 4 is not a discount. The shopper is still buying the full item at the full price. What changes is the way the price is framed at the decision point. $30 today can feel easier than $120 now. For the merchant, BNPL is not charity. It is margin math. If the fee creates enough extra completed orders, the merchant may accept it. The bet is that extra conversion is worth more than the cost. The same button can also make shoppers comfortable with larger carts. The provider sits between the merchant getting paid and the shopper paying later. After checkout, the provider needs the scheduled repayments to actually arrive. That creates risk because some shoppers may not repay on time. Risk has to be paid for somewhere, through fees, limits, or pricing. The provider may look at purchase amount, repayment history, device signals, and account behavior. That is why a shopper might be approved for one cart, but not another. BNPL can feel like a credit card, but the user experience is different. A credit card often uses a revolving balance. Pay in 4 shows a fixed schedule. A debit card pulls from current money. BNPL creates a later obligation. The benefit is real when timing is the actual problem. A necessary purchase can be easier to manage when payments are predictable. The risk is that an optional purchase starts to feel like a tiny bill. BNPL can move the payment pain from checkout to a future payday. A calendar filled with small due dates can become its own kind of debt pressure. If plans are spread across providers, the total obligation can be harder to see. Different small plans can land on the same payday or the same bank balance. If the linked card fails, the problem appears after the purchase has already happened. The provider may retry, notify the shopper, restrict the account, or apply terms. Returns add another timing problem because the product and repayment schedule both exist. Returning the item does not always instantly cancel every payment entry. The merchant, provider, and shopper records may all need to line up. A partial refund can be especially confusing because only part of the schedule changes. When something breaks, the shopper may not know whether to contact the store or the provider. For businesses, the question is whether higher conversion really covers the fee. More completed orders can also mean more returns, support tickets, and refund work. A smoother checkout can create support questions later if customers misunderstand the schedule. It tends to matter more when price hesitation is a real checkout barrier. The first term to check is every due date, not only the first payment. The second term is what happens if a payment is late or fails. The third term is which card or bank account will be charged. The fourth term is whether the provider reports activity or restricts future use. The first part of the mental model is checkout friction, moving away from the purchase. The second part is repayment friction, moving into the calendar. The third part is risk, moving into approval, fees, limits, and support. Once you see the timing, the whole system becomes much easier to understand. The recap is simple. The shopper gets the product now and agrees to future payments. The merchant gets a smoother checkout experience, often in exchange for a fee. The provider approves the plan, pays or settles with the merchant, and collects repayments. So Pay in 4 is not free money. It is a system for moving timing and risk. The checkout looks simple because the complicated part moved behind the button. This is hidden business systems, simple explanations of the systems most people use every day but rarely see.